Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to my masterclass on how to eat to beat disease. It's great to be with you today. Thanks for taking the day out to share a little time to talk about food as medicine. Now, one of the reasons that I love doing this masterclass is because it's got global reach, and I've had classes where we've had more than 8,000 people sign up, if you can believe it, from 44 different countries. So welcome, everyone. You're about to join an amazing community of people I put together. And these are all people who really care about their health, and they also care about food. Those of you may know that I actually I'm kind of a foodie. So for me, food and health isn't really about deprivation. It's about how do we lean into the foods that we love and have a good time and also eat well at the same time. So before we begin today, though, I really want to share with you why I even started this masterclass. And it goes back to the very beginning of the pandemic in the spring of 2020, when I was locked in my house the same way as every other human on the planet. And I realized something pretty profound. I was staring out the window, wondering what was going on, and realizing that here I am. I'm a physician, I'm an MD. And yet the medical community, the healthcare system, the hospitals had really nothing to offer when we were faced with this unknown virus that was circulating around. There were no pharmaceuticals, there was no vaccines, there was no antivirals, actually nothing that doctors could offer. And that's when I realized something major. And that is that, you know what? People still needed to eat. Every human still had to go out and put food on their table. They had to go out to shop. And that's when I realized that the most important thing that I could do is to share my knowledge with the public on how to eat to beat disease and how to use food to shore up your health defenses. And if I could actually give this to every person that was interested in what they could do for themselves, this would actually give people the ability to be in charge of their own health. And I think that's one of the things that I certainly find important as we are in 2022 now, is that I want to be in charge of things. I want to call the shots. And that's really why I created this masterclass. Again, I've had 8,000 people, actually, honestly, more than 10,000 people from more than 40 countries that have signed on board over the last year that I've given this. And so I know that there are people from all around the world. So if you want to just put in your chat where you're from, let me see that. I see some Canada, England, Hong Kong, Massachusetts. Go ahead and add it into the chat. Barcelona, love Barcelona, Minnesota, Fayetteville, Wisconsin, Mexico, love it. Nigeria, wow. Okay, Malaysia. I always have somebody from Malaysia, people from Malaysia, UK, Washington, California, Peoria. I know Brazil. Okay, awesome. So, we're back in motion, this is a global community, which is what I really, really love about this. Okay, so as I began preparing for this masterclass, I started to think about what are the best ways that I can help you learn about how to improve your health. Now, the last couple of years, we've had a lot of ups and downs. And one of the constant questions is, how do we find the right voices to trust when it comes to our health, right? Like I have the same question. I'm always looking for who's a respectable, reliable person who's going to give me information that I can use. So what I decided to do is to make sure everything that I share with you today is solely backed by science. Okay, that's super important. Now, I've spent 30 years in a research lab in the clinic studying how the body responds to whatever we put inside it, whether it's a pill, whether it's an infusion, whether it's a food or a spice or an herb or a supplement. And when it comes to food, that's what the field of food as medicine is all about. And I'm actually doing a lot of work. I'm the co-chair of a big food as medicine initiative that's going on in the US right now. And the idea is that the field of food and science is all about using science to generate the data that gives us the evidence that we can trust. All right, so that's what I'm actually going to give to you today. But the thing I also want to do is to make sure that you know that I want to leave you with a message that your own health is in your own hands. And that way you should be empowered after this masterclass to take your health into your own hands and be responsible and make some good decisions. Now, to help you truly understanding what eating to beat disease really means, I'm going to tell you about some new scientific discoveries about the power of the human body and how food can be the first line of defense. Like that's the front gate for almost every disease you can think about. Before I do that, though, I want to give you a little bit of information about myself for those of you who don't know me. I want to tell you about my journey, like, and how I got to this point. So I'm a physician, an MD, internal medicine doctor. I'm trained to take care of men and women, young and old, healthy and sick. And one of the things that I actually really focus on is keeping people healthy. And whenever they get sick, because we all get sick at some point in time, my goal is always to get you back on that rooftop of health. Okay. I'm not about, getting people sick, seeing people that are sick, diagnosing them and throwing prescriptions over after people, and just leaving it at that. My goal is always to get people back on their feet. I'm also a scientist. We call what I study vascular biology. So I study blood vessels. You're going to hear about that in a moment. I'm also an author. I wrote the book, Eat to Beat Disease. Some of you may have read this. If you haven't, this is a new edition. It's got this blue top. I actually added immunity recipes in the last year or so. So I'm an author as well. And what led me to food actually is that I got my start in biotech. I started out looking at common denominators of disease, and I started out trying to figure out how we can actually develop better treatments for diseases like cancer, diabetes, vision loss, heart disease, stroke, obesity. And I'm actually still working on that stuff. But what I realized during all of the work I've done in biotechnology, and by the way, my work actually led to 42 now FDA approved treatments. So I that's my street cred. I really know how to take science and actually move it into treatments that can actually game change. So, but the question I started to ask myself is, after all these treatments, maybe after 10 of them, I've got 40 of them now, I started thinking, wait a minute, a treatment, a new drug, a biotech treatment is really just chasing the horse out of the barn. What about actually preventing disease in the first place? When you're talking about prevention, you really can't talk about drugs. You got to talk about something safe, effective, not expensive, and you got to talk about food. So, but one of the things that I realized, and this is, a product of my own education, is that when it comes to nutrition, doctors are not very well educated. In fact, I had less than a month worth of nutrition during my entire medical career. And the other thing is that a lot of criticism that doctors have about nutrition is a lack of evidence. So about 10 years ago, I said, well, look, we can solve that if I go back and actually study food in the same systems that I was involved with drug development. So truly studying foods in those same drug development systems is food as medicine. And so when I threw food into those systems and looked at what foods could actually do, it was pretty amazing. In many cases, foods went head to head against drugs. Okay. In fact, if you disguised that it was a food and you put a code name on it and an investor saw it, they're like, oh my gosh, I want to invest in that because that's going to be a blockbuster drug. And in some cases, some of the foods even beat the drugs in these systems. So I'm one of the guys who actually studies food as medicine. I don't just talk about it. Now, I started to realize like that was a missing tool in the toolbox. Now, I wrote my book, Eat to Beat Disease. I didn't really set out to become a writer, an author. I love books, but that's not something I really wanted to do. And this is a pretty thick book. The reason I wrote it is because, unlike drugs, which might take 10 years and $1 billion to develop, food is something different. It's got intimacy, and food is very close to us. I mean, we all have some food that we're connecting with our childhood, what our mom cooked, a smell that we love, and we all come from a culture, and food is really part of culture. So we're all from someplace. And that's why I really wanted to get the word out that the things that we're ultimately more connected to than medicine, our food, can actually impact our health. So science, health, food, these are my passions. And I'm somebody who's super mission driven. So that's why I'm taking my time to share my research and my knowledge with you. I'm doing it free. And I also created an online course, by the way, for those who want to do a deep dive to learn about the concepts and how to put them into practice on a much deeper level. So I'll tell you more about that a little bit later. So look, most of us have seen advertisements for things called superfoods. That's marketing. I want to tell you that based on my research, there is no such thing as a superfood, a super supplement. There's no magic bullets for our health. What is super actually is the human body. Mother Nature engineered the human body to be quite spectacular. And our body is hardwired with health defenses that give us everything we need to be able to prevent disease, stay fit, improve our health, and recover from illness. And these health defense systems can be activated by the foods that we eat, which is the great part. We can add foods to our bodies, activate our health defenses, and we don't have to just worry about cutting out foods, which is deprivation. Human nature really abhors deprivation. So I'm all about what can you use science to figure out what you add to your body. Good news is that the stuff that you can add tastes great. So, the other thing really about me is that I have a motto that I've really come to believe in after all this research. And my motto is love your food to love your health. And so what I try to focus on are foods that actually been part of traditional food cultures that taste great, got lots of good recipes. In my book, I put, now there's, I think, 50 recipes in it. I'm working on my next book now, and I've got a ton of recipes I'm going to add in there as well. So this is all about what to add to your diet. But before we talk about what to add to your diet, I do want to say we should all start with a clean slate. Okay. And all of us eat some junk and get bad habits. So I want to actually identify a few things that make it harder for your body to stay healthy. So that way we can move them off the grid, cut down or cut them out. Okay. So this is the level of the playing field. So here are 5 things to watch out for because they squash our body's health defenses. Number 1, added sugar. Okay. I'm not talking about sugar in a mango or, a fruit or a vegetable. I'm talking about the 10 teaspoons of sugar that are added to a can of soda. All right. Or a candy bar or something else that might be ultra processed that's super sweet. Added sugar over time overwhelms your body's metabolism. You can't handle that sugar, and added sugar actually stuns our health defenses. So, so your health defenses want to work at their peak, but if you've got too much sugar around, sugar dissolves in our bloodstream, right? You can measure your blood sugar at a doctor's visit, and it makes everything work like in slow motion. So that's one thing that actually stuns our health defenses. Number 2, ultra processed foods. This is what comes in a box, in a can, in a jar that you get in the middle aisle of a store. When you open it up and when you pick it up and you look at the label, it's got so many ingredients, like 20 ingredients, most of which are in Latin or Greek that you can't pronounce and you have no idea what it is. Ultra processed foods are foods that your grandmother or great grandmother would not recognize as a food, that comes from a factory that takes whole foods and kind of grinds them up and extrudes them and colors them and adds all kinds of synthetic chemicals. Ultra processed foods stun and suppress our body's health defenses. We don't want that. We want to start with a clean slate. Alcohol is another thing that in excess stuns our health defenses. So all the things that we need, it's true, a glass of wine contains polyphenols from the grape, not the alcohol. So it's in the colored juice, but not actually in the ethanol, the alcohol, the chemical part of it. And people drink wine because they like the buzz you get, but it's not the buzz, nothing to do with alcohol. Alcohol is actually a toxin. It kills brain cells and it kills liver cells. Fortunately, we can regenerate some of those. But again, too much alcohol puts us at our health defenses at a disadvantage. The other thing is a lack of movement. Now, we're all coming back onto the world now. So there's no excuse not to get back on your feet, go for a walk, spend 30 minutes a day, get your heart rate up. Okay. even walking around your house or your apartment actually can get your blood flowing. And that actually, believe it or not, movement changes our gut microbiome. You've heard about gut health. Or when you're going to hear about more from this from me, gut health actually involves leads to brain health, heart health, immune health. And so if you're not moving, couch potato, all right, it actually impacts our microbiome. It turns our gut microbiome into an ecosystem that's not well behaved. So again, lack of movement, inactivity squashes our health defenses. Then finally, the last one I want to talk about is overeating. So I know all of us have done this, me too. You go to sit down at a meal, of a holiday family meal. Food is so good. You load up your plate, you eat it, and then you go back for seconds. And then, you don't have to eat a couple of bites, but then you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. I went from feeling really good and enjoying my food to feeling really bad. And now I'm kind of regretting that last bite. overeating, just like extra sugar, actually overwhelms our body's health defenses, overwhelms our metabolism. We can't stand it. Actually, like all those extra calories have to get the energy have to get stuffed into fat cells. Now your fat cells are unhappy. Now you got inflammation. Okay, all kinds of things that actually hurt our body's health defenses. So how do you not overeat? There is an old Confucian saying translated in Japanese called hara hachi bun mi. Hara hachi bun mi. And that means stop eating when you're 80% full. All right. Now think about it. You're piling onto your plate. Okay. Or somebody hands you a plate that's packed with food. All right. You don't need to eat the whole plate. This is like quit the clean plate club. I'm giving you permission to do this. Stop when you're 80% full. Don't worry about what's on the plate. Worry about how you feel. Stop before you feel like you are actually full. Leave the party before it's time, right? Leave people wanting more. That's basically the whole principle of not overeating. Those extra calories suppress our body's health defense systems. They also cause you to be obese. It's something I'm working on for my next book. And it causes all kinds, like a whole domino effect. So now let's switch gears and talk about my favorite part, which is how do you feed your health? What do we add to our body? So to do this, I want to introduce you guys to our 5 health defense systems. And when we actually feed our defenses, basically our health defenses ratchet up and they actually help us feel recharged, renewed. So let's go and talk about the first health defense system. First one of the 5 is called angiogenesis. That's what I study. Angio is blood vessel. Genesis is growth. So angiogenesis is how our body grows blood vessels. Now, why are blood vessels important? Because you have 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels packed inside your body. All right. And these are the highways and byways by which the oxygen, the air you breathe, the oxygen gets to your cells and your organs. This is the same highways and byways that the food that you eat, I'm going to tell you about the good foods. Actually, those bioactives, those polyphenols, those phytochemicals get also delivered to your cells. All right. So angiogenesis is how these blood vessels are formed. And it's really important not only to keep our organs healthy, but not to have too many blood vessels around. And the reason that's important is because here's an interesting point you might not know. Angiogenesis and cancer are related. In fact, when we have a good angiogenesis defense system, it will allow our organs to have circulation, but not cancer. So here's the deal with cancer. And this is something a lot of people don't know. We all have cancers growing inside our body. You too, me too. We are all made out of 40 trillion cells that are dividing over and over so that we're around tomorrow. All it takes is for 1 or 2 mistakes for those cells to make when they're dividing, and bingo, you've got a mutation, you've got a mutated cell, and you've got a microscopic cancer. Now, these microscopic cancers can grow up to the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen, about 2 millimeters, and that's it. The reason they can't get bigger, no oxygen, no nutrients. They don't have an air hose. They don't have a blood supply at the very beginning. And so our body's angiogenesis defense system prevents that from happening, prevents a bad circulation to be growing to a bad cell, like cancer cells. Now, and then what happens is that the tumor sits there, and then our immune system wings by like cops on a beat, looking for those bad guys, those like microscopic cancers, and picks them up. So think about a policeman driving on the street, sees a drug dealer sitting down in the corner, not doing anything, but that guy doesn't belong there, picks him up, puts him in a squad car, and drives him off. Okay. That's what our immune system does. And the angiogenesis system prevents those tumor cells from hijacking good blood vessels to feed themselves. This is my area of research. I can tell you that without a blood supply, those cancers are tiny, pinpoint. The moment that cancer can hijack blood vessels, angiogenesis, that the blood vessels grow right up to the tumor, feed it, okay, like an organ, and that cancer can grow 16,000 times in just 2 weeks. All right. It's explosive. It's like a trigger for cancer growth. And that's what happens when our angiogenesis defenses are not in good shape. Remember, I told you those 5 things that actually compromise our defenses: too much sugar, all that kind of stuff, not enough physical activity, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the good news is that there are more than 100 different foods that I wrote about in my book, and they're in tables and charts that are anti-angiogenic. They enhance your body's ability to cut off the blood supply feeding cancers. And that's part of the research I've done at the National Cancer Institute. Some of these foods, by the way, include tomatoes. So you've heard about tomatoes, and they're nightshade fruit, and they've got lectins. Move that's all kind of like good thought, wrong idea. Tomatoes, I'm going to show you one. Tomatoes, okay, actually have lycopene. They are healthy to eat. All the human studies, not animal studies, show you that tomatoes actually can reduce the risk of different types of cancers, including prostate and breast. And if you can't actually get a whole fresh tomato, guess what? You can order this. This is actually just a tube of tomato paste. And San Marzano tomatoes, which are from Italy, have the highest levels of lycopene. All right. So, by the way, a clinical study of 36,000 men showed that eating tomatoes, cooked tomatoes, can reduce the risk of prostate cancer by almost 30% and by breast cancer by about 20%, all due to this cancer-starving properties. Now, there are other anti-angiogenic foods you should know about, okay? Soy, again, another urban legend that women should avoid soy. Turns out soy cuts off the blood supply, feeding breast cancers and other cancers. All right, so there's a big urban legend. This is what I'm telling you. Science cuts through urban legends to be able to develop information, the evidence that you can use. So this is what I'm all about. Looking at the research, cutting through the myths and urban legends, and trying to clarify for people. So you're not scared of your food. You actually understand your food. And by the way, tomatoes and soy and all these other things taste great. Now you can lean into your food and feel good about it as well. Black raspberries, cacao, dark chocolate, okay, pomegranates, green tea. I got some green tea here too. I always drink some green tea, all anti-angiogenic. That's your first health defense system, number one. Second health defense system is regeneration. Now, if you were like me, when you were in grade school, your teacher told you starfish can regenerate, salamanders can regenerate, but people can't regenerate, right? Wrong. Turns out that humans can regenerate. So we're throwing that whole chapter out. New book is being written. Humans regenerate using stem cells that come from when we come from the womb. So when we were developing in the womb, we were only stem cells. When we were born, we had extra stem cells that didn't get used. It's kind of like having extra cans of paint. When you finish painting in your room, you always get extra paint so you don't run out. But when you're done with painting the room, what do? Oh man, I got a few extra cans. You put the lid back on, put them in the garage for next time. Do you need to patch something up? Well, that's exactly what our stem cells do. We got extra stem cells. How many? 750 million extra stem cells when we're born. Those get all packed up in our bone marrow mostly. And so then when we need them over the course of our lives, our body calls out more stem cells to regenerate our heart, our brain, our muscles. You're going to work out in the gym, you got to grow some new muscle. Those stem cells come flying out in order to be able to regenerate our organs. Now, foods can activate this regeneration system. They can call out more stem cells, and that's why they're part of this defense system. If your organ needs to be repaired, if you're sick, even for COVID, like long COVID needs stem cells to repair some of the damage. That's another thing that I'm working on right now. But there are dozens of food that can help you regenerate, including dried fruit, because it's got something called ursolic acid. And another food that can actually help out is dark chocolate. Turns out cacao, which is, by the way, a plant-based food, dark chocolate, okay, actually can call out the stem cells in your bloodstream. And this has been studied in humans. It's got to be like 80% or higher cacao. So you really want to go for that dark chocolate. And remember, I told you, you don't want added sugar. So you don't want to just be eating candy bar. Go for the dark chocolate with as little or no added sugar, refined sugar as possible. Now, there are other foods that can actually stimulate your stem cells as well. Whole wheat, brown rice, barley, oats, even popcorn. These all have fiber, and the dietary fiber triggers our stem cells. Swiss chard, mustard greens, collard greens, goji berries, those little tiny little herbal berries. You can get them in dried almost anywhere. They contain something called zeaxanthin. That is a bioactive, one of Mother's natural chemicals, supercharges stem cells so they can help us regenerate even better. And then I have something special. I found this yesterday when I was out shopping in the Asian market that you may not have seen before. I found some Chinese parsley. Okay, this is not your regular parsley that you make. Parsley, sorry, celery, Chinese celery. This is Chinese celery. Look how long it is. This is monstrous. Okay, I'm backing up. This is Chinese celery. It looks kind of like celery. It's a little wilty. It's much softer. It's not like these hard sticks. You can't beat somebody with it. And it's much more potent than if you break it up and smell it. Wow, it's got this like peppery, more intense, celery smell. Okay, here's what you need to know, that there are studies have been done to figure out what's in Chinese celery. It's not in regular American celery or European celery. It's a chemical called NBP. It's 2-nitro bisphosphonate, thiol, NBP, 2-NBP. All right, this actually has been shown to stimulate stem cells to come out of your bloodstream. In fact, so powerfully that in China, because remember, this is Chinese celery. In China, they've actually extracted the stuff from celery and Chinese celery seeds, and they've approved it as a drug to treat stroke. So they've done human studies where people have strokes, and they're able to give this 2-NBP, which comes from the celery, and it actually helps more blood vessels to grow and repair and regenerate the damaged stem cells in human brains. Quite amazing, okay? Coming out of this natural food. This is, again, food is medicine. Sometimes the stuff in the food becomes the medicine. All right, so that's regeneration. Third, health defense system, microbiome. You've heard of gut health. Well, I study the microbiome too. Here are some facts. We got 39 trillion bacteria in our body, mostly in our gut. And, when I went to medical school, we were taught that bacteria are bad. We got to get, destroy bacteria. That's why you write prescription for antibiotics. Turns out that most bacteria in our body is good. Every now and then you get a bad guy, but what we don't want to do is actually, bust out the antibiotics to really destroy all the good bacteria in our path. So here's the thing. We've got lots of good bacteria. They grow in our skin. They grow in all our orifices, but most of them is in our gut. And when we eat our food, okay, whatever it is that we're not absorbing from a nutrient perspective in our stomach and our intestines goes further down our intestines to feed our gut bacteria. So we are feeding our microbiome, our good gut bacteria, like a pet. So every day, if you feed a dog or a cat or a goldfish or a pet parakeet, okay, you're also feeding your gut microbiome every time you sit down yourself, okay? Our gut bacteria, which lives in our body and we feed, pays us back, okay, for the room and board that we give it by helping to control our immune system. So good, healthy gut bacteria helps control, make sure that our immune system is strong, very important in this day and age, and also lowers inflammation, also really important for all kinds of chronic diseases. Our gut bacteria help us heal wounds. This is research I've done at MIT. It also even signals to our brain. It's gut bacteria, amazing. They basically use the nerves that run between our brain and our gut and send a text message up through those nerves and tell our brain to release social hormones like oxytocin, like serotonin, like GABA, like dopamine. But the oxytocin one is really interesting because oxytocin is a social hormone that makes us feel happy, pleasant. It's the same hormone, oxytocin, that when you see a relative that you like, see them in a while, like oxytocin, your brain releases it. When you see a friend, when you hug a friend, when you have a kiss, and when you have an orgasm, oxytocin also comes out, lots of it for a short period of time, okay? That's a feel-good hormone. Our gut bacteria helps to control that. Now, eating foods can improve our microbiome defense system, so it can even help our brain work better and also help to improve mental health issues as well. This is like the next frontier of mental health, is how does our gut help to improve our brain. Now, the best foods for your microbiome are the ones that contain a lot of fiber, like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, kiwi, mushroom. These are what we call prebiotic foods because they feed your gut bacteria dietary fiber. And studies have been done in humans to show that you can actually improve them. In fact, one kiwi a day will actually start to improve your gut microbiome in 24 hours, which is pretty amazing. And there's another food that I talked about already that also strongly helps our gut microbiome. And guess what? chocolate. It's the food that doesn't suck. Everybody loves chocolate, right? So, and by the way, chocolate's plant-based, and the cacao has a lot of dietary fiber and polyphenols that help our gut bacteria. So want to take care of your third health defense system, microbiome. There are foods that we can eat that actually help that. You can also have a probiotic food that's actually are fermented foods themselves. Fourth health defense system, our DNA protection system. Now, DNA, most people think about it as our genetic blueprint. So our genetic code, and it is our genetic code, but most people don't realize that of all the DNA. So, okay, if you were to take a cell out of your body, okay, and you were to open it up and pull out the DNA, you know how long it would be? That string of DNA, which you couldn't see with the naked eye, but let's say you took a pair of forceps and pulled it out, would be 6 feet long. That is our DNA. Okay, you know how much of that is actually used to actually code proteins, which is what the genetic code does? Only 2%. Only 2% of our DNA out of 6 feet long is actually used for printing proteins. The rest of it controls all these other parts in our body and protects our body as well. And that's why our DNA systems is a health defense system, because if you had mutations in our DNA, those mutations, as I told you, can cause cancer, can create cancer. And guess what? Our DNA makes about 10,000 mistakes every day. That could be a mutation that could turn into a cancer. And these mistakes happen because, well, they can happen just by just being alive, but environmental insults also contribute to those errors, those mistakes. Gas fumes, ultraviolet radiation. You're sitting out in traffic, or you're going to the beach. It's a beautiful day. I'm going for a walk outside, right? That sunshine actually mutates your DNA, makes your DNA make mistakes. Radon from the ground, off-gassing from your new carpet. All these can damage our DNA, but how come we don't get cancer more often? Because our DNA is hardwired to fix itself, repair itself. This is why our DNA is one of our body's health defense systems. And we're actually discovering lots of diseases are associated with damaged DNA defenses. So your DNA defense is breached. You can't help fix the DNA. Alzheimer's disease, autism, all cancer, celiac disease, cystic fibrosis, depression, diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, even PTSD, again, this mental health aspect, rheumatoid arthritis, all associated with problems of DNA defense. Not the only problem, but it's a major problem because it's trying to fix problems and it can't repair. And now you've got a bigger problem as well. Kiwi is one of my favorite foods to talk about repairing DNA. Eating 1 kiwi a day will actually, within an hour, will help your body, your DNA, protect itself from incoming missiles damage, like radiation or oxidative stress, by 60%. So it's like a 60% shield in an hour, just eating 1 kiwi. And then if you eat 3 kiwis, you're not only just protecting the DNA, it actually helps turn on the engine of the DNA to fix any problems, that damage that might have occurred. One is preventative, one is fixing. Fixing your DNA is like a highway crew paving the potholes before your car drives over them. Because when you've got these errors, think about driving your nice car over these potholes. You are screwing up your tires and your axle every time you drive over one of those. That's why we need to get this fixed. All right. That's our fourth health defense system. Finally, our immune system. Now, everyone now knows, after what we've been through on planet Earth in the last couple of years, that a good, strong immune system is really important. Everything from avoiding the common cold to influenza to COVID. But did you know, actually, that your immune system protects you against cancer? So if you have a strong immune system, remember I told you, the cops on the beat, the patrol car driving by looking for those microscopic cancer, good, strong immune system will clean up the neighborhood continuously. When your immune system is weakened, it's like, like you don't have security anymore. All right. The risk of getting cancer is higher. So think about people who are immunosuppressed, HIV patients, for example, people with AIDS, their immune system's way down. If you're on a autoimmune treatment that takes down, like for rheumatoid arthritis, and it takes down your immune system, man, or a transplant patient, you're on steroids and really lowering your immunity so you don't reject. those situations with low immunity, cancer can pop up. It's quite common in people with really, really low immune system. So we want to shore up our immunity. All right, that's part one. Part two is that inflammation is part of our immune system as well. But we don't want we want a little bit of inflammation. We don't want it to go haywire. All right, too much inflammation damages everything in the body, and then you need to then repair it with your stem cells and with regeneration. So we want to lower our inflammation while we want to raise our protective immunity, like our T cells. All right, but good, strong immune system can even wipe out cancer when it's spread. There's something quite amazing called immunotherapy that is one of the most dramatic treatments today. It's not chemo. It actually just causes your immune system to activate to go look for the cancers and wipe it out. In fact, it's been so powerful that it can wipe out cancer that's spread even to your brain. Now, there's certain foods that can actually activate your immunity as well. We know that broccoli sprouts contain a natural chemical called isothiocyanates that actually cause your immune system to go up. There was a study done showing that people who ate broccoli sprouts and got a flu vaccine had a 22 times improvement in their immune response to the flu vaccine. And we also know that blueberries, which I love, blueberries, got some here, love the taste of blueberries, boosts our T cells. This is the defensive part by threefold, and it lowers inflammation as well. Now, pomegranate juice can also increase the mucus in our gut that allows one healthy gut bacteria called Akkermansia to grow. And that Akkermansia talks to our immune system. And so that's another way of actually manipulating and helping to shore up our immune system, is just helping our gut microbiome being healthy. Now, why does that work? Turns out our gut bacteria lives in our gut, talks to our immune system. 70% of our immune system is actually in the wall of our gut. So our bacteria talk to our bacteria like college roommates talking to each other through the room. Hey, through the wall. Hey, what do you want to, what kind of pizza do you want? Like, in college, people are shouting through the wall, thin wall, same thing in your gut. Your gut bacteria that's healthy talks to your immune system. So we actually know, by the way, that the stuff in pomegranate juice is called ellagic acid that actually helps the gut secrete the mucus. Ellagic acid is also not just in pomegranates, it's also found in chestnuts, blackberries, walnuts, all other things as well. Now, I just told you a ton about defenses and foods, and you probably try to say, well, how do I remember which is which? Well, you'll be happy to know that I got a list of foods called Grand Slammers. So these foods activate all 5 of the health defense systems in one fell swoop, one shot. So let me just read some of them to you. Apricots, mangoes, peaches, carrots, eggplant, kale, green tea, walnuts, squid ink. Here, that's the one from left field. That like squid ink pasta, black pasta, that it's the ink is actually what the squid uses, like an octopus, to squirt into the water to escape from a predator. That's actually used in Mediterranean cultures. It's delicious. I really love it to cook with it. That also activates all of your body's health defense systems. Okay, so those are some of the grand slammers. So now I want to tell you about some new research, brand spanking new research that's come out. And this is just like, like still smoking hot. It's so new. So a new study that was just came out last month looked at 200 people with melanoma, deadly form of skin cancer, getting immune treatments. Remember, I told you immunotherapy is one of the most powerful new forms of cancer treatment. Well, guess what? They figured out that only about 20% of people respond normally. That means 80% of people don't respond. So they were trying to figure out, these researchers from MD Anderson Cancer Center, one of the world's best cancer centers, and the National Institutes of Health in the United States, they were trying to figure out what makes the difference between a responder and a non-responder. Turns out that the responders have one gut bacteria, a lot of it, called Ruminococcus. Ruminococcus. Don't worry about the spelling of it. It's just one of the healthy gut bacteria. Well, what makes Ruminococcus bacteria grow and communicate to your immune system, which immunotherapy then helps you fight your cancer? Turns out that dietary fiber is what makes a difference. You eat foods with dietary fiber, you grow more Ruminococcus. More Ruminococcus, better immune system. Better immune system, more likely to respond. And they actually calculated this research. They found that for every 5 grams of dietary fiber that you eat every day, 5 grams, how much is that? Well, 5 grams of dietary fiber is what you would find in a medium-sized pear. That's it. If you eat a pear a day, that actually is enough to lower the risk of your cancer growing and lower the risk of mortality in this study by 30%. Powerful. Okay. That's brand spanking new. Very credible study. Very well done. Another piece of new information looked at mushrooms. Fresh mushrooms, even like white button mushrooms, I call it the lowly white button mushroom, or dried porcini mushrooms, a fancy, they're heavenly smelling. They come from Italy or in France. They're dried. You can cook with them all year long. You can make a risotto out of them. You can actually use it to flavor a stew or a soup. Okay. Inside these mushrooms are a natural substance called beta-D-glucan, bioactive. Beta-D-glucan, guess what? Improves immunity. And this has been studied in people, and it was shown that 1.5 cups a day of mushrooms actually increases the antibodies that our body naturally creates, our immune system. IgA, that's what the antibody is called, immunoglobulin A as an atom. In our saliva, increases that immune response to the antibodies in our saliva by 50%. Okay, quite remarkable that mushrooms could actually do that. Just 1.5 cups. All right, not very much. Another thing that improves our regeneration system is barley. It turns out that barley is a grain that actually stimulates our stem cells, and that's been studied in humans as well. You can double the number of stem cells in your body by eating barley. Now, here's another really cool research that this is really, really new. Was published in the journal Nature Medicine. There was a study from the Cleveland Clinic, which is a major medical center. Remember, I told you, all science-based information that's rigorously done, generating the evidence that you can trust because it's science. This was a study of 7 million people. That's a big study. They looked in the electronic medical records. They looked for diseases that these people had, of 7 million people, and they looked at the medicines they were having to see if there's any correlations. Was there any medicine that somebody was taking that might lower disease? Guess what they found? They found there was one medicine that lowered the risk of Alzheimer's disease by 67%. Wow. In the study of 7 million people, no bias, just going in there and using a computer to figure out were there any medicines people were taking that lowered any disease. One medicine lowered the risk of Alzheimer's disease by 67%. What was that medicine? Guess what? Viagra for erectile dysfunction. People taking Viagra for erectile dysfunction had the lower risk of Alzheimer's disease by 67%. Holy cow. How would that work? Well, it turns out Viagra not only dilates the blood vessels in your genitals, okay, it also dilates the blood vessels in your brain, better circulation for your brain. And the way it dilates blood vessels, widens blood vessels, is through something called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide stimulates stem cells to regenerate your organs. So not only do you have better blood flow in your brain, you also have more stem cells in your brain. Remember I told you about the Chinese celery and the stem cells to treat stroke? So now this is an interesting piece of research that asks, what else could stimulate nitric oxide that might be able to stimulate stem cells and widen blood vessels that might be able to do what we observe with Viagra? So this is actually an area of research I'm doing right now. Guess what? There's a food that will do that, and I will tell you what it is. Beets. Beets actually grow low to the ground, and so does spinach, absorb a lot of nitrogen from the soil. And when you chew it, the gut bacteria that starts in your tongue microbiome, converts the nitrogen from the soil in the beet into a form that when you swallow it, gets absorbed into your bloodstream as nitric oxide. Does something very similar to Viagra without the genital effect, obviously. But that's now a really interesting area of research to wonder whether or not beets, and by the way, if you don't like regular beets or can't find them, beet juice, look at this. This has been studied in humans and shown to also recruit stem cells and lower blood pressure. By the way, for every 1 point of blood pressure you lower with beet juice, you decrease the risk of stroke by 5%. So this is stuff that makes a difference. It's been studied in humans, quite amazing. Let me show you a couple more things. Green tea. Now I'm giving you this tea that I happen to be drinking today is got whole leaf in it. But what about matcha? Matcha, I love. It's actually a powder. Many of you probably have had it, matcha flavored things. And matcha is the entire leaf of the tea leaf ground up into a powder you dissolve in water. So it's got dietary fiber and it's got all the polyphenols in a tea leaf. Whereas when you actually steep tea, like I have here, you're only getting some of it, the good stuff that just dissolved, that kind of comes out of the leaf, that when you're brewing it into the water. But matcha has got the whole kit and caboodle, the whole shebang is actually in there. Guess what? Researchers have shown that the combination of all the polyphenols and the fiber in matcha can kill breast cancer stem cells. Now, these are the baby stem cells that breast cancers use to renew themselves. Okay, when breast cancer has been treated successfully, and then later, 5 years later, it comes back, roaring back, those are because of the stem cells. There is no pharmaceutical that has been developed yet that can kill cancer stem cells. Mother Nature's figured it out already. It's actually in matcha tea, which is quite amazing. Now, one more bonus thing I'm going to tell you about is vitamin C containing foods. So, citrus is still in season, mandarins, oranges, blood oranges. So there was a meta-analysis. This is basically looking at different studies. So researchers looking at research, not one study, not two studies, but 57 studies looking at vitamin C nutrition research. This was just published by the journal Frontiers in Nutrition. It showed that vitamin C can reduce the risk of many cancers. And when they actually studied 57 studies, they're like, yeah, it's pretty convincing. So let me just tell you some of the things that they found that reduces the cancers it reduces. Reduces pancreatic cancer by 35% risk, reduces brain cancer by 14% risk, reduces breast cancer by 11% decreased risk, and 22% decreased mortality. So what are some of the foods besides oranges that contain vitamin C? Well, here's some of my favorites. Strawberries, guava, red bell pepper, tomatoes, also a source of vitamin C. All right, so I know we're getting towards the end. If you enjoyed these topics and you're really committed to your health, I'd like to personally invite you to take my Eat to Beat Disease course. If you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, if you've got a lot of stress, if you're worried about disease, if you're battling a disease or you don't want to come back, or if you just want to restart your health and you want to basically, kind of embark on a new path where you're actually able to boost your body's health defenses like we talked about, or maybe you just love food. Like me, I'm an adventuresome person. I love to try different types of foods. And you want to just eat healthy, love your food, love your health at the same time, my motto. My online course is a great way to do this deep dive. And I prepared this really because I know that, like today, we're just kind of doing a flyby just to give you exposure to it. But deep dive with my course, you can practice, learn how to practice to eat to beat disease. So I've got testimonials from people from all these countries on how this course has changed their life. And so let me tell you what it is. It's a 4-week course, online course, where I go into deep depth, great depth about each of the health defense systems. No other course has this because that health defense system is my research. So I share my work on many, many more foods, even more than we talked about today. How do you find them? How do you buy them? How do you store them? What are the techniques for cooking them? Lots of practical tips. Every week, you go through the videos at your own pace. Everyone's got their own schedule, their own life. It takes about 2 hours per week to watch the videos. And then I've got a 1 hour office hours. So it's about that you can sign on to as well for Q&A. And so it's about 3 hours. It's kind of like a Netflix binge. You just need to carve out each week to get the most out of the course. I also talk about what I do in my own life in the course. It's a whole module called What Dr. Lee Eats. And these weekly office hours, by the way, it's with myself for a whole hour where I'm going to be available to answer questions and answers. You send the questions in, I answer them. It's a 1 hour session every single week for 4 weeks. And all the work that is in the course that we talk about is based on scientific research, kind of like what I shared with you today. And because research is new, I also send out brand new research every single week, pretty much as it comes out. So I'll curate it. I'll look at it. If it's important enough, I'll get it out to you guys taking the course. By the way, why do I do that? I believe that science progress shouldn't be buried in the lab, in the stacks of the library. I want to get it out to my students through my course. The course also has a workbook packed with my own notes that I took from every single video and tables and charts of foods and the dosing of food. Now, I know people care about dosing because People want to know that. Like, it's not just what food I should eat, but how much I should eat. So I include that in the course as well. And if those of you who have read my book, Eat to Beat Disease, what you need to know that this is not a summary of the book. This is not like the audio version of the book or the video version of the book. This is the research that went into creating the book. It's much bigger. And it also contains much more recent research I've done since my book came out. Not a diet course, not a rigid diet plan. I don't believe in those. Not just a series of food lists. It really sets you up to create lifestyle change. So you can take wherever you are now and use information that you can just, start to shift your life to a much healthier personal level of eating while you're enjoying your food. So whether you're on a strict diet or not, whether you're gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, vegetarian, keto, Whole30, whatever diet you might be on or might not be on, you can actually use this information in a course. It's adaptive to virtually anything. So it's very, very personal. If you're cooking, if you only cook your food, or if you only eat out, same deal. You can use this information in order to make better decisions. If you got food allergies, you can figure out how to swap food out. Okay, so this is really for anybody. I designed this course for anyone who wants a healthy lifestyle, regardless of where you are in your personal health journey today. So for limited time only, this course is available for 50% off for those of you who are taking this masterclass. So 50% off for those of you who are taking this masterclass. In 72 hours, the price is going to go back up. So I wanted to make sure that I told my team I wanted to give a discount to the people who took the time today to hear this. And you can take advantage of this this offer. You're going to get an email after this masterclass. So you can actually sign up for it, or it can be dropped into the chat right now. So the spaces are limited. I got to tell you, every time I offer the class, it immediately gets sold off very, very quickly. So I encourage you to actually register for it. And the reason is I got to limit the number of people to take the course so I can, take the time to really interact with them. That's because I'm building this community. So we have more than 1,000 people from 44 countries that are all part of this community. So I am really inviting you to join them. So this is really about, if you want to actually step forward and really join a group of people that learn how food as medicine gives you the power to make the decisions to make your body healthier and how to implement that, you can take advantage of this. The course is 50% off by watching this masterclass. So I truly appreciate the time you've taken today. There's a lot of information. There's a lot more information coming out, but I like the fact that, all of us who are gathered today make health a priority. And so that's why we're spending time today. So don't forget, my motto is love your food to love your health. And with that, I thank you very much.